Good day, everyone. This is the eulogy for HWB. I've had 2 weeks to think about how I could do this wonderful man justice. How on earth do I sum up such a huge character in a few minutes? In the end, it was surprisingly easy, as most people who knew my dad already have great and lasting memories of him. Mine are mostly about love, and it was reciprocal. And for me, it was unconditional. We had a special and distinct bond. He was there for me at my first day of primary school, at my university graduation, and he walked me down the aisle. He taught me how to reason and appreciate, to empathize and to be with. I owe most of my best attributes to my amazing daddy. Daddy was the eldest of 10 children and was clearly a born leader. His siblings recalled fondly how he was a role model for them and just how much he was loved by them all. His mother actually doted on him. She took personal responsibility in preparing his meals to the standard that he expected. Allegedly, she and only she could prepare his special lemonade with nutmeg and his favourite special famous steamed fish. My dad had a special crystal ball for opportunities. One day, whilst at work at the office in London, a colleague chucked a newspaper at him and said, "Hey Barrow, look, isn't this where you're from? A new brokerage in Guyana?" My dad calmly put the newspaper in his pocket, went home and applied. That was the beginning of IBGL. Business-wise, he was a true professional and had that unique ability to converse with absolutely everyone, whatever their walk of life. He could always find something lovely to say to people to make them feel at ease, and he possessed the art of gentle persuasion. Equally, he could make you feel like sent ice, if necessary, but in the most subtle and kind-hearted way. My beautiful mum joined Daddy in London and they got married in 1964. The next year they had me, followed by three more equally beautiful daughters, before he returned to Guyana in 1971. We followed a year later. Although I was only 6, I clearly remember him walking out onto the tarmac at Tamari and scooping us up in his arms. He was such a warm and loving dad. Our only brother completed the lineup when I was 13 years old. My dad beamed from ear to ear for at least 2 weeks. My siblings and I have really, really happy memories of growing up with him. He'd say, "Come, let me go for a drive," just out of the blue. We'd go to Demico for ice cream, to Brown Betty, sometimes even in our pajamas. We'd go to the Starlight Drive-In, walking on a seawall, and strangely, actually window shopping at Guyana stores in the evening. We really enjoyed that. We would do creek and beach excursions, complete with enough food to feed a small village. Dad took us on lots of trips into the interior in Guyana and around and abroad. We've got fond memories and hundreds of pictures from our last whole family holiday in Florida, and how much he enjoyed it and laughed. That will be forever etched in our hearts. He was so clever. He loved music and even taught himself to play the piano. We'd often have family sing-alongs at home in Republic Park and do concerts of onshore young Guyana. He was so proud when I played the Japanese national anthem when we had diplomats over for functions. My dad was also a devoted Christian who regularly attended the Gospel Hall at Peter's Hall. I remember being so proud when he would officiate sometimes there. My dad also had a strongly developed moral compass, and he truly and really was a man of God. He'd often recall the story of when he was asked to choose between his wife and unborn child number 3 when complications arose. He refused to choose instead leaving the decision in the hands of the Almighty. Needless to say, we still have them both. We remember old year's night as teenagers. He'd say, yes, of course y'all can go out, as long as you see the new year in at church as a family. He loved celebrating success. He would beam when we see the people he loved achieved anything, from degrees to gold medals to passing music exams. He really believed in family. And I believe that in life you only need one person to believe in you. I also know that for many individuals, my wonderful hero, my father, was that person. The one that believed in them, gave them a hand up, a break, took a risk. He even let me give him a haircut about 30 years ago. I still have that little bundle of downy, slightly greying hair in my drawer. He had a wonderful temperament and was always soft-spoken and even-natured. Many people have told me, I've never seen your dad shout or get angry. My brother recalls that he was never ever told off by our dad. Well, actually, there was this one time that he came home from drinking with his school friends aged about 15. Mum threatened to tell Daddy about this. Adrian was really worried about how much trouble he was going to be in and went to his room and waited. A few hours later, he got a knock at the door. It was Dad, poked his head in, and he said, "Son, your mother wants me to talk to you about drinking." So Adrian said, "Okay." And my dad just looked at him and said, "Okay." Nodded his head, nodded again, and slowly and quietly left the room and closed the door. He was so loved that we'd find that we'd always had to share him whenever we went out. He knew everyone out there. It was, Hans Barrow, Mr. Barrow. Hi, Mr. B. How are you, Mr. Barrow? As we grow up, we also got a little share of it. However, ours went more like, you're Mr. Barrow's daughter? Oh, young Barrow. The little Barrow. Hey, you're getting big, little Barrow. Although Daddy loved to travel, visiting all the continents in the world, he loved his beautiful Guyana even more. He travelled extensively for both business and pleasure, but we recall him always counting the days before he can get back home whenever he was away. And his suitcases were the most organised things I'd ever seen. He'd shake his head in despair when I opened mine and everything fell out. Before I finish, I would like to thank everyone for their words of support and all the kind tributes in honour of our wonderful father, Hans William Barrow. We, my sisters, my brother and I, feel lucky, honoured even, and so grateful to be the offspring of such a great and wonderful person. He literally brightened up the room and was loved by all of his grandchildren. So Pops, your wife, your grandchildren, your children, and all the family, and everyone that knew you, we already miss you so much. We miss your infectious laugh, your beautiful reassuring voice, the way you cleared your throat, the weird dancing with your knees together, the smell of Nivea and Right Guard and talcum powder, the way you drank, raising your eyebrows with each sip, the snoring we could hear from downstairs, and your long, long, long suck teats. Thank you for you, thank you for me, and thank you for all of us. And it's a PS. So you chose my middle name, Father, because you thought I looked like an angel. Now, you will always be my angel. Love you, miss you.
This scripture reading is taken from Psalms chapter 1, verse 1 to 7.
The king rejoices in your strength, Lord. How great is his joy in the victory you give. You have granted him in the heart desire and have not withheld the requests of his lips. You came to greet him in the richest blessings and placed a crown of pure gold on his head.
He asks you for life, and you give it to him, the length of days forever and ever. Through the victories you give, his glory is great. You have bestowed on him splendor and majesty. Surely you have granted him unending blessings and made him glad with the joy of your presence. For the king trusts in the Lord. Through the unfailing love of the Most High, he will not be shaken.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. 'Twas blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to feel, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we've long less days to sing God's praise than when we first begun.
I will now read a letter from Tatsuo Hirayama, an ambassador from the Embassy of Japan. Dear Mrs. Barrow, I was saddened to learn of the passing of your husband, Mr. William Hansel Barrow. My thoughts are with you and your family during this difficult period. We will remember Mr. Barrow for his tireless and diligent service from 1980 to 2011 as the Honorary Consul General of Japan in Guyana. His contributions, highlighted by the conferment of the Japanese National Award of the Order of the Rising Sun, gold raised with neck ribbon in 2005, has assisted in developing the good relations between Japan and Guyana, and we are tremendously grateful. There are no words that I can offer in your time of mourning, but I'm sure your husband will live on in your memory, and I do hope that the joyful memories of your beloved husband will prevail over your sorrow very soon. Sincerely, Tatsuo Hirayama.
We've put together a few scriptures that we thought would be fitting for this moment. Have mercy upon me, O Lord, for I am in trouble. Mine eye is consumed with grief, yea, my soul and my belly. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Jesus said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. To everything there is a reason, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance.
And now for the scripture reading, Thessalonians 4:13-18. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren, concerning them which are asleep, that ye sorrow not, even as others which have no hope. For if we believe that Jesus died and rose again, even so them also which sleep in Jesus will God bring with him. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord shall not prevent them which are asleep. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, and with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds, to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words.
My name is Basil Mahadio. I'm the Vice President of the Insurance Association of Guyana. I would like to say a special thank you to the relatives and family of Mr. Barrow for affording me the opportunity of saying a few words on his behalf. I know no amount of words would be able to express the sorrow and grief you all must be feeling, but I hope that you can find comfort in knowing that he lived a long and fulfilling life and was an outstanding son of Guyana, who contributed significantly to the community and our country as a whole. Mr. Barrow was known to me for over 3 decades. He was a committed husband, a dedicated father, and a loyal friend to all who knew him. Over the years, he has touched the lives of so many persons while carrying himself as someone who had greater meaning to the word humble. He has devoted his life to serving the insurance industry and leaves behind a legacy of operating one of the leading insurance brokers in Guyana, and for helping so many young persons forge a career in the insurance industry. Mr. Barrow will forever be remembered as a stalwart throughout the industry for his dedication and commitment to its success. He was a past president of the Insurance Association of the Caribbean and the Insurance Institute of Guyana. As he leaves this world and journey into heaven, I know that he'll be looking down on us, smiling, for he knows that though he has left in body, he will live on forever in our hearts. At this time, I would like to express my sincere condolences to the relatives, family and friends of the late Mr. William Hansel Barrow. I believe I speak for all of us in the insurance industry when I say we have lost a good man and a friend who was simply no ordinary gentleman. I thank you.
First of all, I must say that I was very saddened to learn of the death of Hans, and I wish on behalf of myself and my wife and family and the staff of PNP to convey to Hans's dear wife and family and the IBGL family our sincerest and deepest condolences. I first met Hans sometime in the late 70s and early 80s, around 1979-1980. I was then at GTM and Hans was then building Insurance Brokers Guyana Limited, the pioneer insurance broker into what it is today. We spoke occasionally on the phone if he had a difficult risk to place or if he was not getting the kind of response from the juniors he would call me. By then, I had moved on to assistant manager and then deputy manager at GTM. I remember one time he had called about a car for stolen products, a new Datsun, that he was having some difficulty getting covered, and we had sorted it out. Whilst I was at GTM, and before I'd left to go to Hand in Hand, he offered me a job at IBGL, which I politely declined. I subsequently joined Hand in Hand as manager in 1984, and at a cocktail which they held to introduce me to the stakeholders, he was there, and he was not amused that I had declined him and gone to Hand in Hand. Over the years, Hans has built a formidable reputation, not only as a very able and competent insurance person and insurance broker, but also a person of integrity and a person whose character is unimpeachable. He has given human services to the industry, and in particular to the Insurance Association of the Caribbean, where we did a lot of good work, and I also remember working with him when the conference was held in Guyana. We have not met as often as maybe we should have, but in the times that we met, Hans was as usual, very soft-spoken, and was able to get his point over with too much of noise. I've lost a good friend and insurance broking colleague. Hans was someone who was very measured and calm in his deliberations. In discussions, he will shepherd us along the right path and help us to avoid rushing to hasty decisions. His contribution to the industry is towering and monumental, and as the Commissioner of Insurance, Ms. Tracy Gibson, said, in paying tribute to him, that he was a solid pillar of the industry. Hans has given a lifetime of service to the industry, and we ought to remember that at all times. On the wider field, Hans has made contributions, not only in insurance, but generally in business, and the Chamber of Commerce and other areas. So his contribution will be lasting and has been significant. I certainly mourn his passing, and I ask that the Lord give the family the strength to cope at this time with this immeasurable loss.
Father, I know the door.
It is with a deep sense of sadness that I present a tribute on behalf of a fallen hero of the Lions Club of Central Demerara, one who epitomized the spirit of Lionism and humanitarian service. William Hansel Barrow, or Lion Hans, as he was popularly called, was a member of the Lions Club of Central Demerara for more than 4 decades. Lion Hans served in many capacities in the Lions Club of Central Demerara, but his service was not limited to the level of the club. He was always willing and committed to the ideals of this noble organization. He served with passion and distinction at every level, to the extent that he was recognized by multiple international presidents for his sterling contribution to this, the world's largest service organization. Lion Hans, because of his commitment to Lionism, not only became a Melvin Jones Fellow, but a progressive Melvin Jones Fellow, because he recognized the need for sharing his resources to help the less fortunate, not only in his country, but in further afield. On behalf of the international officers of the club and of Region 2, on behalf of the members of the Lions Club of Central Demerara, and indeed everyone in the Lions community, I would like to express sincere condolences to Mrs. Yvonne Barrow, the children of the late Hans Barrow, grandchildren, and other members of the family. I am convinced that when the history of Central Demerara Lions Club shall have been written, Lion William Hansel Barrow, past District Governor, Progressive Melvin Jones Fellow, AA, will take a prominent part in the annals of this distinguished club. May God grant him eternal rest.
Like walking on ice, life never grants us security. We could leave at any time. The great unknown could become known and our existential values reduced to a minimum, which is why most of us spend our entire lives thinking about our death, but not Grandad. Despite not having this conversation with him, I always felt that he was looking to his future whilst preparing what's behind him. From his business to his children and the promises that bind him, he was a husband and a leader, which most of the time come as a pair. I heard he took good care of Nanny, and Nanny always took good care. Speaking of Nanny, he was a parent, and I heard he was the greatest. He was so kind to my mama, though I heard he didn't have favourites. He probably did so many other things that no one even noticed. And I know that no one's perfect, but something tells me he was the closest. Although we pushed him in a wheelchair when the road was getting narrow, he will push us to go further when the seas are looking shallow. He had greatness in his flesh, in his blood and in his marrow. Now everything we achieve will be for William Hans Barrow.
As I look up to the skies above, the stars stretch endlessly, but somehow all those rays of light seem dimmer now to me. As I watch the morning sun appear, the shadows still don't fade, as if the brightest light of all was somehow swept away.
Though I see the branches swaying and watch their dancing leaves, the echoes carried on the wind don't sound the same to me. As I listen to the morning birds sing softly from afar, it seems to be a mournful tune that echoes in my heart.
Another day has come again as time moves surely on, but nothing now seems quite the same to know that he is gone. The days and weeks and months ahead will never be the same, because a treasure beyond words can never be replaced.
The loss cannot be measured now, the void cannot be filled, and though someday the grief may fade, his mark will live on still. For even with my heavy heart, I know that I've been blessed to have been one whose life he's touched with warmth so infinite.
We love you, Granddad, and we miss you.
This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. My story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. This is my story, this is my song, praising my Savior all the day long. Praising my Savior all the day long.
So I sing this poem. We walked with God from that great throne. His helping hand he leaned upon.
It is a sad day as I reflect on the life of our beloved Mr. William Hansel Barrow. Having worked at IBGL since April 1981, I have several memories of working with Mr. B over the years. He has been a teacher, a mentor, a keen listener, but most of all, a father figure to each staff who had the privilege to work at IBGL and is still working at IBGL. On behalf of staff, both past and present, I take this opportunity to offer our deepest condolences to the Barrow family on the passing of a giant who lived a full life. To us, he was not only our founder and managing director, he was the Honorary Consul of Japan, the treasurer of Uncle Eddie's Home, the Lions president, founder member of the Insurance Association of the Caribbean, a lodge member, a councillor for the city of Georgetown, president of Chamber of Commerce, member of Adult Education and Tutorial Old Students Association. I am positive, just as he has left his indelible memories at IBGL, he has done the same at the several institutions he embraced for one reason or the other. He is gone, but he will never, ever be forgotten.